Welcome once again to the next episode of Shifting Focus, a talk with Sanjay Gupta. I hope all of you are absolutely safe, sound and healthy and taking care of yourself. My name is Sanjay Gupta, proud to work with DS Group as VP and head its packaging development and procurement function. As you know, here in this show, I invite thought-provoking, most influential business leaders, game changers, and inspiration models who speak their minds about various issues arise due to this current pandemic and way ahead in changing business landscapes. Today, I am very much excited to host Mr. Jonathan, ex-Group Director, Innovation and Flexibles, European Union. He is with us live from Bath, United Kingdom. Mr. Jonathan is BSc Honours in Economics and Administration from University of Bath, UK. He also has a fellowship of Institute of Mining, Materials and Metallurgy, UK. He has a very rich experience of 3 decades in each sphere of packaging. Geographically, he had worked in most parts of the world, right from Europe, USA, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Middle East, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, Pakistan, India, Turkey, and Japan. He was also involved in mergers and acquisition, totaling more than 2 billion euros across globe. He was also an advisory role to the top 10 global flexible packaging manufacturers. With such a rich global experience, today's interaction is going to be very, very interesting. I once again welcome Mr. Jonathan on this show. If the viewers have any question, they can comment them down below and I will get them to you on the same. Let us open the floor now for discussion.
Sanjay, very much.
So I think we will start the conversation now. Mr. Jonathan, how do you see pre and post pandemic industry and the government outlook towards packaging industry? Do they find packaging industry as a main core important industry for any nation? Has perception changed? Because prior to this pandemic, packaging was not seemed as a core industry for any nation, but we believe.
Yeah, if you look at the global packaging industry, it's worth several $100 billion. It employs millions of people and supports a plethora of raw material suppliers, brand owners, and the public at large. And packaging is of fundamental importance for the lifeblood of any nation. And if you look at what happened, once the pandemic started, I think all countries, either initially or subsequently, have accepted the importance of packaging as that lifeblood. Therefore, packaging companies have been allowed to, by and large, stay open. And I think it's quite remarkable that the industry has been able to produce as much, over this very difficult 6-month period.
Yes.
And if you look at the half-year results coming out from various packaging companies, you can see, they've, despite the restrictions of social distancing, they've been able to keep going. I think the perception has changed both positively and negatively. People that were working in offices are now working at home. They're not buying their Starbucks en route. They're making their coffee at home. They're not buying their wrap sandwiches. Again, they're making, a substitute at home. So they have to buy packaged bread, for example. And they're drinking more wine. Certainly in Western nations, there's more wine consumption. So there's a mountain of wine bottles now, it's got to be put out to be collected. So I think psychologically, there is an undercurrent that packaging is important, but on the other hand, because of the increased garbage that they've got from packaging, that clearly creates a negative perception. I think there's the basic problem is that there isn't, wherever you go in the world, a unified system of collection, sorting, and recovery. Consumers, certainly in Western Europe, are asked to separate out their paper, their plastic, their cans, their glass, and so on. Then if you look at the complexity of a liquid carton, you've got many components, so they can become confused as to what to do with that. If you look at flexible packaging, quite often you will see it says, this packaging is not currently recyclable. So again, that's not really very helpful, I don't think. And then on top of this, we see that many countries, again, particularly in Europe and also USA, probably elsewhere in Asia also, they're proposing bans on single-use plastic. Well, actually, this isn't going to do very much, I think, to stop street littering. Plastics has got a higher calorific value than coal. So if you look at a lot of Scandinavian countries, they've actually been burning plastic for very many years to heat homes, offices, and obviously factories. And it's a very clean technology, so we should be doing more of that. I think the other aspect is that the science of packaging is not well understood outside of the industry. I think people can intuitively accept an Amazon package, let's say of a computer, which is wrapped in corrugated. They have to have that security. But on the other hand, they don't like the fact that a cucumber is wrapped in plastic, despite the fact that it increases the shelf life by 4 times. I think the industry associations do their best, but they've got limited budgets and limited influence. And politicians, on the other hand, have got very short time horizons and are generally not at all interested in packaging.
But I think after this pandemic or during this pandemic, society by large and government and different associations are understanding the need of packaging industry and are they are giving due value to the packaging association or packaging industry or the people who are associated with packaging.
I think you're right, but there is still every day I read lots that plastic is bad for you.
Yes.
I mean, plastic is not inherently bad. It's what people do with it that is the problem. So until you actually, can start a real, I think, infrastructure of recovery, then I think these bad perceptions will persist. And we need to carry on educating the public as well, yes. Which is very difficult.
Yes. So I will come to my next question. Mr. Jonathan, do you see innovation done by packaging industry in past had been some help to society in these difficult times? If you can, please give us some of these innovations and their benefits which society could take during this pandemic.
Well, I think the ability to pack and preserve food in this difficult time has been immeasurably beneficial. Panic buying has meant that we've seen shelves cleared of things like tins of baked beans, jars of sauces, packets of flour. And without the techniques of aseptic processing and sterilization, you certainly would not get anything like the shelf lives you're getting now. And clearly there would be a big problem in terms of availability because a lot of factories were closed, so therefore there wasn't much production of food or even pharmaceuticals at that time. And if you think about vacuum packing, widely used in meat and cheese, that's been around a very long time, but it continues to improve. Modified atmosphere packaging is another one, widely used for the packaging of fresh produce to increase shelf life. Liquid cartons, polyester bottles, I think further examples which give consumers that assurance about safety and hygiene. And even frozen food sales increased quite a lot in many countries, and you've got the added convenience of zippers and press to close, which reduce food waste. What we're now seeing is the evolution of QR codes. So there's quite a lot of cooperation between packaging manufacturers and brand owners. And what they're doing, they're giving details of the pack components, sometimes the ingredients themselves, and guidance as well, are starting to give guidance as best disposability. So I think, you know, again, there's some reassurance and more information and education going on. And what you're seeing now is more rapid development of active and intelligent sensors, such as color spots for products which go out of shelf life, and other aspects such as, you know, even music now being played or starting to be played as, you know, as an alarm for something which is, you know, has got a leaking seal, for example. It may sound sort of exotic, but, you know, I think there's a lot of imagination going on. And I also think we've got to acknowledge the enormous efforts made by very many packaging companies to actually switch production to personal protective equipment. You see a lot of companies, you know, Uflex is a good example, making aprons, but some of them, you know, converted over to visors and masks and so on. And they did that very rapidly, and probably quite a bit of cost to themselves as well. So I think, you know, there's a whole array of things going on, and I think the pace has been accelerated, certainly in terms of the active and intelligent solutions.
I think you have very quickly summed up this issue. I have seen in India also, we are used to take fresh milk, but in this pandemic, people have shifted to Tetra packaging or a frozen foods. So I think packaging industry has done a lot in the past, which has helped us in this pandemic time. So can I show?
Yeah, we've lost the connection, I think. We can carry on if you want, but I can't see you.
Okay. Should I carry on?
Yeah, carry on. Go on. Yeah.
Okay. Now I will come to my third question, which is very, very relevant and important. Do you really see that one side globalization is taking backseat, and on other side more R&D and collaborative approach among different countries having specialization in respective field is required? How it will happen? How Europe may collaborate with India for their packaging requirements? Because recently in Innovation Index, India has climbed to 47th place. So how do you see the future as far as globalization or more collaborative approach is concerned?
Right, that's a good question. I think there is a reappraisal of supply chains, which will involve manufacturing plants moving closer to demand. The lack of air travel and concerns about the pandemic will mitigate against, I think, cross-cultural cooperation. Zoom is a wonderful tool, but it is no substitute for face-to-face discussion. The Bank of America estimates the cost of shifting all export-related manufacturing by foreign firms out of China would cost $1 trillion over 5 years. And today, China represents 1/4 of the world's manufacturing added value. It would take a whole lot of time and effort, I think, to significantly change that. You see the continuing spat between China and US. The UK is finally leaving the European Union. Russia and Germany have strained relations. A lot of the world's economies are on their knees, and I think nationalism is at the forefront.
Yes.
So therefore, I don't think the political climate is that conducive to collaboration. If we take India, you've got a wealth of talent in IT and engineering, and European countries have been outsourcing services to Bangalore and other Indian hotspots for some time. And I think as a nation, you have tremendous entrepreneurial spirit. I would say unsurpassed anywhere in the world. Mr. Modi has made it easier for foreign companies to invest although improvements are still necessary concerning the infrastructure and removing bureaucracy. We've seen Amcor, Constantia and Huhtamaki all acquiring Indian packaging companies in the last decade. They have transferred know-how in respect of safe working conditions, hygiene, quality standards, and their innovations. And the presence of the big multinationals, Unilever, Nestle, PepsiCo, I think further reinforces the global business expectations. So I think you can take that entrepreneurship and the innovations and develop your markets further in Europe and beyond, and take the support of those global businesses who are expanding their operations in India. But I think you need really to focus in India on what is acceptable in respect of service and relationships. The most difficult challenge for any exporter, I think, is to think locally and act locally.
Yeah.
And I think India in particular must learn to accept when dealing with Europe that tomorrow actually means tomorrow and not next week.
I think you have said very rightly that think locally and act globally, because I think it is very, very essential to acquire technical know-how from the specialized people, specialized industry, and then you can mass scale it at your own level. Otherwise, I think it is very, very important to have the balanced collaborative approach in terms of globalization or nationalization, instead of emotional approach of globalization or globalization or deglobalization or regionalization. I think it is very, very important to take the balanced approach.
Yes, and I also think it's important for those Western companies operating in India that they should transfer Western people to live in India and elsewhere, so that they really understand the local thinking and the local customs and culture, and can get that message back to headquarters.
Because if we do not believe in globalization, so there is a possibility that the cost of products would increase. And in today's time, when people do not have money, so people won't afford to spend more money. So it is very essential to take advantage of strength of different industries or different countries or different regions, I believe.
Yes, absolutely.
Very nice. So now I'm coming to fourth question. As a consumer, I'm expecting a virus-free packaging. Are we anywhere nearer to this virus-free packaging? What are the innovations and future plans? Recently, WHO has announced that normally packaging is virus-free. There is no need to worry from the packaging that anybody can be infected from the packaging. I think they have done a detailed survey. But in general, consumer needs or consumer endorsement from industry that what we are serving to is a virus-free packaging. What do you think about it?
Well, it's interesting because I read recently a study which found that 1 in 3 consumers believes that COVID-19 can be spread by packages received from other countries. I think the major difficulty we've got with this virus that it can strike anybody at any time without notice. This is what creates the doubt and uncertainty. So I think you can have some leading questions. Number 1, should all packages be left untouched for a period of quarantine? Number 2, should they all be disinfected before opening? And 3, what is the risk of a PET bottle, shall we say, compared to a carton? Personally, I think the risks are low, but if 1 in 3 consumers believes otherwise, we've got a problem. The issue in terms of complexity with packaging is that you've got many components. You've got an array of chemicals used in printing, lamination, extrusion, coating in flexibles, and similar lots of processes to make other packaging formats. So it's not unknown, though it is very rare, for packaged food products to become tainted by migration. And despite sophisticated chemical analysis, sometimes you can't find the root causes. And I fear that the potential complications from analysis, potentially from a virus, simply would muddy the waters even further. And I think if we look at companies supplying packaging for medical equipment, things like needles and scalpels, they're incorporating fully sterilizable materials. The packaging's manufactured in clean rooms with strict control of dust and the environment. Operatives wear protective equipment. So I think, you can see an advancement of this using more and more in food packaging to give that assurance. There are developments with antivirus coatings, some of which look very promising. I think the other aspect is you've got to reduce the complexity to minimize handling and airborne contaminants. So for example, just a simple one of taking a 2-ply laminate and moving it into a monofilm, you're taking a process out. I'm not sure it'll apply to India, but for sure the introduction of robotics to reduce handling is going to be accelerated. But if we think about this, even if a packaging company has a totally secure answer, how can that packaging company control the remainder of the supply chain to the end user? It will still require a huge amount of care and diligence.
Is packaging industry in a position to endorse or can guarantee to a consumer that whatever we are producing or whatever you are buying is a virus free?
No, because they don't, as I said, even if they had a completely secure solution, it's still got to be processed into something. It's still got to go through a middleman, a contract packer, a food manufacturer, a pharmaceutical producer. So there's absolutely, no way that mid part of the supply chain can exercise total control.
So, but consumer needs this endorsement. So how he can be assured about this aspect, because everybody is worried about this pandemic.
That's true, but on the other hand, he's also worried, I think, in terms of products which go out of life because they're leaking. At home we had a pack last week of bacon that had gone off because the seals were poor. There's always going to be that risk, but I think the industry has got to do its best to do some further research on this to provide reassurance. But I don't think there can ever be 100% guarantee.
Okay. Now I would be coming to my last question, which is very close to my heart. It is very evident that fight between mankind and nature. I think all of us are responsible for spoiling this ecosystem and nature is punishing us. What are the responsibilities of packaging professionals? Are we really serious or just fulfilling forced regulations?
Good question. I think there are many conflicting priorities in any business, but nobody wants to destroy the planet for our grandchildren. Many leading companies are publicly listed or in the hands of private equity. Management has a strong profit motive to keep their jobs and lifestyle. Becoming more sustainable may mean increasing costs with little in return, at least in the short term. Developing viable alternatives for traditional petrochemicals, for example, needs R&D resource and a long-term commitment. Several packaging companies, and certainly all of the majors, have excellent sustainability and social commitments. Mondi, for example, has a 10-point action plan. That includes employee health and safety, relationship with communities, and climate change. A pledge is made to reduce greenhouse gases by 34% by 2025 from the 2014 baseline. And that goes alongside commitments to reduce water consumption and waste to landfill. I think that sort of list is typical of what a lot of packaging companies commit to. Whether they actually achieve them in the long term is another matter. Several of them and brand owners have signed up to organizations like Ellen MacArthur Foundation and Recycling Partnership. There's a widespread commitment that all packaging is to be recyclable or reusable by 2025. I doubt this is realistic. There are enormous technical challenges. You need an adequate raw material supply base and sufficient recovery capacity, not forgetting the profit motive mentioned earlier. So whilst non-fossil fuel alternatives have obvious appeal, there are big challenges in terms of recovery. According to Amcor, compostable packaging often ends up in trash or recycling streams, where it can contaminate entire loads of recyclables. Many industrial composting facilities don't accept compostable plastics. Some legislation, despite its good intentions, is incapable of being fulfilled. If I take the UK, they want to introduce in 2 years' time a tax if packaging fails to meet a 30% consumer recycle rate. Now, how can that be possible when PCR is not approved for direct contact food use? So I'm confident that the packaging industry is as committed and serious about sustainability and the environment as it can be. I think a simple measure of how much lighter packaging is these days compared to 5 years ago, there's been an enormous downgauging irrespective of the packaging media. And that has meant quite a lot less consumption of natural resources. But a real problem is that packaging is not a sexy career for graduates.
Yeah.
The constant negative publicity about plastic is a real deterrent. In Europe, there's a genuine shortage of packaging scientists. Without these scientists, I think progress will be limited.
I think you have raised a very, very relevant question that there is really a shortage of real packaging scientists or packaging professionals who can work on this serious issue which is affecting our God-gifted beautiful ecosystem. I think whole industry or government or institution should work upon on these areas. I think
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think various courses should start in different premier institutes on this subject also, apart from regular courses. It is very, very relevant and very essential now.
Yes, it's not as if the packaging industry pays badly either. You know, it used to be not so good, but I think by and large the salaries and rewards which go with, you know, a good career are there, and you're there for the long term. Packaging will still be around in 50 years' time when you want to retire.
I think, as expected, your answers to on all the areas are very, very relevant and very would help the whole industry. My last question, which I asked to the each of my interviewer, that there is a lot of pessimism in the market, in the industry, among the people. Are you still optimistic about future?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a Sagittarian, so I have to be optimistic.
Oh, very nice, very nice, very nice. Because of the situation, environment, news, everybody is worried. Salaries are cut. People are losing their jobs. So there is a lot of pressure in the industry. So I think that when you people come forward and say that in the midterm or a long term or a short term, there may be some improvement in the industry or that this planet will exist. There had been a lot of issues in the past, but mankind had recovered all these in the past, and definitely this pandemic will definitely over after some time, and there will be a good future. So I think this voice from you people, experts or innovators, will definitely boost some confidence in the industry.
We hope so. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming live directly from the UK for all of us. And when you touched upon all the subjects of sustainability, innovation, virus-free packaging, packaging fraternity, future of packaging professionals, requirement of ecosystem, I think we will definitely be benefited by your answers, and industry will definitely get benefited from your answers, and make up their future plans according to your advice. Thank you so much.
I hope so.
And take
Thank
care
you
of,
very much.
and be
Goodbye.
careful. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye.